Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Andertons TV. Thanks for tuning in. And today I'm joined by the very lovely Rob Harris, who you may know from various YouTubey things that he's done with PRS, but his main gig, you may know him from, is his Jamiroquai gig. So you've been Jamiroquai's Axeman for
20 years. 20 years this year. Yeah.
That's crazy,
I
isn't
had
it?
hair, everything. When I joined, I had hair and no greyness. And
So were you literally with him from when he got big, or was
no? The band started in '93, and I joined in '99.
Oh, okay. God,
So,
that does make me feel super old because I don't even remember being that young when it first came out. That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
But that's a long time to spend touring with one artist. So.
Yes, it is. It's great. It's it's flown by. I can
Really?
say it's flown by. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's been great. We've done a lot of touring and sort of made a few records. It's been good fun.
And is that his? You play all the guitar on all the records, or since '99, all the live stuff. So you're not just the live guy, you know.
No,
you do...
yeah, I've written and played on all of the albums that have come out. Apart from the last one, I didn't write anything on the last one. But yeah, I've been very fortunate.
Oh, well, we'll come back to the JK kind of thing. But
yeah.
So let's go back to growing up and. You know, in the Harris household.
I haven't done that yet. I haven't quite made it to that bit yet. Yeah.
But so, was it like a musical family? Was like mum or dad, played anything and got you into it?
My mum played the piano. Apparently, she stopped when I was born.
Right.
My dad had played guitar. You know, he was sort of he loved skiffle groups.
Okay.
And he had an old Hofner, which we still have actually. And he played 3 chords, which he told me it was like C, F, and G, but it was actually A, D, and E. He got the names wrong. So I picked up the guitar when I was 7.
Yeah.
So I sort of hassled my dad to go and get the guitar out of the loft, and I think it was probably after watching Top of the Pops or something, and that was it.
Who was big at the time? What are we talking then? We're talking.
It was
sort of. I'm guessing we're similar age. So what are you talking? Late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah. It was. I was 7 years old, so it was late 70s. I was actually living in the Middle East. We moved to Qatar, and I just became completely besotted with the guitar.
Because you no internet, no DVDs, no nothing. So, and I've no idea in Qatar. Was there an expat kind of radio station and stuff you could get stuff on?
There was. It was just pop stuff. There was a lot of. I've got an older brother and sister, so there was a lot of things playing around the house, like Earth, Wind and Fire and the Jacksons,
right?
And
lots of
disco-y stuff. And my dad was very into Elton John, and I think one of the first times I actually realised there was such a thing as a guitar hero was when my dad was pointing out the solo at the end of Sultans of Swing.
Right.
Yeah. And that was the fastest thing I'd ever heard. So that was before I'd sort of even heard about Hendrix and stuff like that. So. Yeah, I grew up with that around the house. I had a weird thing when I started playing. I had the guitar on my lap, and we couldn't get plectrums over in Qatar, so I used to cut them out of hair lacquer lids.
Right.
And I used to sit and play everything on my lap, sort of Jeff Healey style, until I came back and had lessons, and I was taught by a guy called Colin Medlock.
That name rings a bell. Is he a well-known tutor, or have I made that up from somewhere?
He's been around a long time. He was great, and he taught me to. He was like, pick the guitar up.
Were you playing chords then with it on your
lap?
No,
I
just
kind
single
of
note stuff.
I knew a few chords. I had a really a cheap MDF style guitar, electric guitar that I got in Qatar, and then so I came back from the Middle East in 1983. And started lessons with Colin, And he, you know, it just took me through learning Beatles songs and stuff like that. And it was on my second lesson that he was late to the lesson, and he'd been, he said, you know, sorry I'm late. I've just been in London, I've been at a session. And I was like, what's a session? And he explained that if someone, you know, he'd been hired to go in and record on a track for someone.
Yeah.
And at that session, he was hanging out with a guitarist called Alan Murphy.
Oh, yeah.
And
Level 42, Alan Murphy.
Level 40 will go west, Kate Bush,
right.
you know. And that's when I became interested in, what does a session mean? What does it do? You know, what's a session guitarist do? And then I sort of followed the route through from Alan Murphy, Steve Lukather, Larry Carlton. I started listening to those kind of players. That's when Colin introduced me to that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So you never had that sort of, you never had that kind of, I want to be Jimi Hendrix or Eric Clapton or what, you know, like the guy at the front. You always quite you know, you saw yourself as a sort of a part of the supporting crew, if you like.
I just thought what a great thing that would be to turn up every day and play a different style of music and, you know, contribute to a bunch of people making a sound. You know, I was always into that. That's still what I'm into, really.
That's interesting. So stylistically, from a young age, was it a conscious decision to go, I've got to be able to play multiple genres of the guitar?
Yes. That's what I thought I was going to do. You know, if I was getting on a country session, I'd probably be, you know. But I was always into the idea of adding to whatever, you know, listening to what's there and adding to it, or being able to, you know, listen to someone's idea and sort of interpret it. That's the thing that interests me the most. And obviously you have to sort of get your playing level to a point where you can do that kind of stuff. Yeah. But I love doing that. That's, you know, it's one of my favourite things, is hearing a track for the first time and going, should I play or shouldn't I play? What can I do to add to this?
That's, who was saying, somebody I think was talking about, might have been Mike Landau, not him, but talking about him and how when they first sort of started hanging around him, just absolutely, when you know, the part that you were asked to play might be whatever it is, but he would always go, I think this would be better, you know, like, so, and it was always like, it always was better, you know, as in, but often less and a different interpretation. But as you say, really thinking about how do I make this track better with what I do, you know, rather than there's a bit of that. It's, you know, listening to the vocal or where the vocal might be, because sometimes you're playing on something and there's no vocal yet, so you're thinking in terms of, how do I come up with a hook for it? You know, how do I make this thing, the guitar, fit with what the bass is doing, or you know, what texture am I going to add to the track? You know, is this a guitar dominant track? Are there lots of keyboards on it? You know, what's going to be the main thing? So back in the 80s, when did you go through formal guitar, you know, training, like a higher education type?
No, I had lessons for 3 or 4 years with Colin. And then I joined a band when I was 14. Bunch of guys from Cambridge, and we were doing covers. They thought they were Ultravox, so we were doing lots of Ultravox style music and a few covers, and I started just gigging in Cambridge when I was 14 years old.
I love, because I started learning to play guitar quite a bit later, but as in when I was 14 or 15. Right. By which time, and I think what had put me off during that early 80s thing was, I didn't think a lot of the pop music particularly was guitar centric. You take a band like Ultravox or any, you know, it's you don't sort of sit and go, that's a guitar band, you know. There obviously is a guitar in it. Or or it was Steve Vai or Mark Knopfler or somebody that was like, you'd pick a guitar up and just go, it's like, I'm so a million miles away from being able to do this. Right. And I sort of found that, I think, quite uninspiring, as opposed to, you know, although I did start to play, it wasn't really until something like Oasis came along where all of a sudden you could go, oh cool, you know, I can play those basic chords and jam along. But I'm interested in sort of, you know, during that time, it's who you mentioned Alan Murphy, but you know, who did you want to be?
Stuff that I remember waking up one morning in bed, and my brother had the radio, and I shared a room with my brother, and I remember hearing, I didn't even realise it till very much later on, but I remember hearing as the intro to a song where it was given space before the vocal came in, thinking, that sounds amazing. And it wasn't solo, you know, it's not someone shredding or a lead line, it was just a rhythmic part that was the hook for a song. I remember thinking, that's so cool. I didn't know it was Nile Rodgers at the time. I didn't know who Nile Rodgers was. And that stuff was, that music was stuff that was played a lot in that time, you know. Those parts, very rhythmic, very hooky, very sort of hypnotic. Those are kind of the things that I was drawn to.
Well, that, I mean, that absolutely makes sense, obviously, into how the Jamiroquai thing must have kind of been a good fit.
But I had a weird revelation with it, was that I was booked to do one of these 80s tours where I was in the house band for an 80s tour. And one of the artists that was there was Nick Hayward from the band Haircut 100. And we were playing this song, and I was playing, he was playing and I was playing, and I'd learnt all the stuff, and I was like, it all started flooding back to me. My sister used to listen to this record
he was a
all
super
day long.
heartthrob, wasn't he, in the 80s?
There was a song, real kind of fast, funky playing. Which I always thought that comes from Nile Rodgers. But when I spoke to him about it, he was like, well, actually, no, I got it from listening to the Talking Heads.
Right.
Because they were kind of doing sort of a weird punk funk thing, much more sort of slightly more aggressive. And I didn't know that's where, you know, the journey was weird, and then I realised that actually, I probably heard that stuff as well. You don't know where it all comes from, but
they probably, I mean, if there was going to be any kind of guitar parts in some of that more 80s pop stuff, it would have been funk, wouldn't it? Kind of vibe to it. So, that's cool. So, this band that you formed with all your buddies, did that go anywhere, or was that?
We played the Cambridge Rock competition, came second. I just used to do pubs in gigs in pubs around Cambridge, and then I got a job. I was sort of working. I strangely had a mortgage when I was 18 years old.
Whoa, that's very grown up.
I know, so I was having to make money, so I had a job, but then started to realise that unless I got out of that job, I was going to be stuck, you know, paying a mortgage, and I wasn't going to be able to do what I wanted to do. So I began teaching quite a lot and taking on any gigs that I could get at all, turning up to sort of open nights in London, and sort of making connections with musicians, and just turning up to any gig that I could get.
So what was the first like decent break, the first decent session, or first decent tour? Or
I got a gig with a band called the Pasadenas.
Oh yeah, what was the?
They
had
did
a hit, didn't they?
They had a song called Tribute.
Yeah, I can't think of it now.
Late
but I know
80s.
The name. Yeah.
They had Riding on a Train. But within that band, there were lots of other musicians. There was a great drummer called Frank Tonto.
Right.
Lots of different drummers came through that band, actually.
Wasn't the Pasadenas like a sort of gospel-y, soul-y funk band or something?
Yeah. It was when I was doing it, it was a 4-piece band.
Oh, was it?
And
I'm
a
thinking of something else.
4-piece vocal group.
Oh yeah, so I am thinking of the right one. Yeah, I'm thinking like a Four Tops
routine.
Like a Four Tops thing.
Kind of like Temptations sort of vibe. But the band was always great, you know, great bass player, Julian Crampton on bass, and you'd be working with all these musicians that not, you know, they were all doing sort of work around town. You get to meet them, and then they go, oh, why don't you come and do this gig, or come to this open night? And you know, you just start building up people that you know, a network. I don't like the word network, but you're building up a group of people that you get to play with. Yeah. And you know, you find yourself on a gig with them here and a gig with them there, or a session gets booked here.
I wonder how similar that is. Because that's the same story that Pete tells of, you know, you just turn up to all the right places, all the right open mic, you know, an event, you know, and if you're good enough, and you know, somebody eventually will go, oh, why don't you do this and that, and then
it's
that's similar now.
It's very similar.
Probably.
I mean, that's the only way that's the only way it works, I think, is being at these things. You're not going to meet anyone sat at home practicing at home. Yeah, you've got to get out and turn up, even if it's just going to see a band play. You know, you're going to meet people, and you know, opportunities are going to come in that way. But when those opportunities come, you've got to obviously be on top of your game playing wise, but also personality wise, you've got to fit. And
I mean that's super important. So after the Pasadena's thing, and that was a tour or a gig?
On and off touring. We were sort of doing sort of corporate things and few gigs here and there. There weren't loads and loads of gigs. I got involved in the studio with them a few times, and that was a good experience. It was just all in the UK though. We didn't travel anywhere out.
And then where does that take us up to in terms of timeline? Was a Jamiroquai a thing by then, or
before that, I then got a gig with Gary Numan. I toured with Gary Numan after that. Gary. Yeah, dear old Gary.
He used to shop here with his band. Who was the keyboard player that had the big glasses and the big hair? Was it Mike's?
There was Aid Orange.
Yes.
And
not Aid Orange from Orange Amps, but this is an Aid Orange that. Yeah. I thought there was a dude.
Dave Brooks.
Dave.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they were such a good laugh when they used to come in. And I remember at the time. This is much later when the Sugar Babes covered that that Gary Numan lick.
Our Friends Electric.
And I remember him saying, you know, I think he bought a boat off the back of it and called it Sugar Babe, or something, because it was just like
he was great, Gary.
Yeah, I mean I've always thought that Cars is a track waiting to be done by a heavy rock band, in the same way that Word Up was done by Gun.
Gun, yeah, that's right.
Word Up did it. And I just think because it's such a killer, and it works for guitar.
It's a great riff.
I can't understand why that's never been done. But
I had a great time on that tour. It was great.
Bet you did.
It was, but really, you know, a big learning curve, because you know, I think there was like an 8-bar solo in the whole gig, which made me realise that this isn't. Yeah. It's not about that, you know. In the band at the time, I don't think I played a third the whole tour, either a major third or a minor third. It was all power chords. Yeah. It was about getting the textures right behind the synths, and holding the gig down. You know, it was great fun.
I can imagine. Yeah, that he was or is super cool. You know.
Yeah, nice guy.
Yeah. Very cool.
I really enjoyed it.
Oh, well, that's fun. That's cool. So that, I mean, and then after Gary Numan.
After that, I started. The band Take That had just split up.
Right.
And then I got a tour with Mark Owen when he went solo.
Yeah.
I replaced Paul Stacey was doing it.
Was he?
And then he left the band, and then I finished off the tour. And then worked with Mark for a couple of years. Actually, I sort of worked on an album with him at his studio up north. And it was while I was making that album with Mark Owen that I got the audition with Jamiroquai.
Right. So what had happened? So the original Jamiroquai lineup was Stuart Zender, wasn't it?
Stuart Zender, yeah.
Super, like he became a stellar bass superstar, didn't he?
Yeah.
But who was the original guitar player?
There was a couple. There was a guy called Gavin Gavin Dodds was in the first touring band. Simon Bartholomew played on the record. He was from the Brand New Heavies.
Oh, cool.
He played on the first album. And then live and on the record before I joined, I came in after a guy called Simon Katz. So I joined after that.
Yeah, and were those guys just they had other things, or it wasn't a good fit? Or?
I'm not sure what happened. I don't know. I think they'd done the Travelling Without Moving album with Simon, and that was huge.
Yeah.
And then the next album was Synchronised, and that's when Stuart left the band.
Yeah.
And then I just got a call one day. I was sitting having lunch, got a call, and there was there's an audition coming up, and can't tell you who it is, but are you available for these dates? I was like, okay, yeah. And
is that quite normal? They can't tell you who it is.
It was a weird thing. It was a weird because I suppose they didn't want to. I think it was an agent I was with at the time. And,
you mean the previous guitar player didn't realise that he was about to get
I'm not sure what it was, but there was a gap of about 2 or 3 months before me. And then I eventually got a cassette tape sent to me. That's how long ago it was, a cassette with 4 songs on it for me to learn. And at the time I was making this album up in the Lake District with Mark Owen, and I had the time in the evenings to sit and I learned every song of every album because I really wanted the gig. And I actually talked myself out of it. I was like, if I'm not going to handle it, if I don't get it, it's going to freak me out. So I decided I wasn't going to go for the audition because I couldn't handle the rejection. And then I was having a long conversation about it, and then I switched on the TV, and they were on Jules Holland as I switched it on.
It's
fate. I was like, I've got to go, really.
Yeah.
So
what super big hit had they had? Sorry, no, go on. Sorry, I interrupted, but you went.
There's the Virtual Insanity track, which was a big hit.
So that was, I'm just trying to get my timeline in the sort of.
That was 96. They had Cosmic Girl.
Deeper Underground.
Deeper Underground had already been out. And then they'd had the next album, which was Synchronised, which had Canned Heat on it, and then I joined at the end of their touring cycle of Synchronised.
Right.
My first gig was playing on a rooftop with the band in Covent Garden for Radio 1. It was Joe Wiley's show.
Cool.
And we had we'd rehearsed the tunes, but Jay called different tunes on the gig on the broadcast. So I was playing songs that I'd never rehearsed with them on Radio 1. But I kind of realised it was that kind of thing. You needed to be fully prepped up, and he's a true artist in that you've got to watch, because it's going to change. Whenever you think it's comfortable, it's all going to change.
I saw him live much later. You would have been in the band by then, because they did a Guildford thing, didn't they? One of the festivals 5 or 6 years ago, maybe. But at the time, I just remember Jamiroquai being unbelievable videos. Unbelievable dance, not like typical dance, but like he was just so cool, and he had all the Ferraris and all the top girlfriends, and just he's like super cool guy. But the tunes were just, I don't know how they would layer up. I mean, presumably there's some guitar mixed in there, but those super fat synthy bass, monster. What's when you've got to approach that with a rig? Is it, because obviously were you having to sort of go, I've got to buy all these synthy pedals or something, or are you just playing relatively clean guitar?
So the first thing I did, I joined in '99 before we were just starting to make an album called Funk Odyssey. They were just starting to make an album called Funk Odyssey, and I'd auditioned, and I'd got the gig, turned up and did the live Radio 1 thing. Thinking that that's all it was going to be. You're going to just be on, just be the live guitarist until they decide they don't want you anymore. And then I got a call from Jay to go to his house, and there was a track playing, and so I'd just come from doing this album with Mark Owen, which was recording meticulous. acoustic guitars, trying different mics, different picks, different amps on guitars, to turning up to Jay's studio, and I had a thin line telly with me at the time, and they just took a lead into a Focusrite preamp straight into Logic, and they were like, "I'll just jam around." So I was tuning up, playing over this track that was just looping, and I remember playing like that part, and then another part that went. Jammed around on this track for 7 minutes. They went, "Right, we got it done." I was like, "What do you mean we're done? I haven't started yet." And they were like, no, it's fine. We've got everything we need. It's great. Next track. So it's just a telly DI'd, and that song was a song called Little L, which was the first single off that album. And
is Jay sitting producing this, or is there a producer
Jay
just going?
Jay kind of floats around. Jay will suggest ideas.
Right.
He'll listen to your ideas, and you just kind of play around on the track. There's not a lot of time to set up mics. I kind of learned you've got to give the guy ideas. He needs to feed off stuff. So I learned anytime I've been in the studio and we're micing up an amp, that's when he gets antsy and starts walking around and come on, there's not a lot of that going on. So that's why a lot of the stuff on the first album I did, it was either a DI'd guitar or a pod. I used a pod quite a lot.
Yes.
The old kidney bean. So there's a song called Love Philosophy. The pod with a cocked wah-wah. I think there was 2 tunes on that album that were an amp, a DeVille mic'd up. The rest of it was get the idea down as quickly as you can, because we're moving on.
Because I sometimes wonder when you get artists. Sometimes I think the song, the hook in the song, or the intro to the song, or whatever, is all about the sound more than necessarily the notes, if you like, or not. But I guess they're just not looking to the guitar to make that. That's very. Was there a lot of. Would Jay play synths? Would he have the sounds like banks of all old analog?
He's got he doesn't play instruments. He just has a lot of ideas. He knows what he wants things to do. He knows how he wants instruments to react. He knows that if anything gets a bit too safe, we've learned to go, right, change it up quick, just change it up. And to the point on the last album we were doing, I could feel him getting a little bit, when stuff gets a bit too musical, not in a, it just, when you're getting too involved and bogged down with the notes, he starts pacing around in the studio. You've got to do something. You've got to come up with, I better pull something out of the bag. And on the last album, I just got, there was a track we were working on, and I got a pencil and just jammed it under the strings and started doing a rhythmic phrase. Sounded kind of like a steel pan type thing. Started playing that. He went, "Yeah, that's it, great." You track that up a few times, and then that pushes the session on to the next bit. It gets him excited. What's
the weirdest thing then that you've ever had to,
naked, dressed, walking around? No, none of that.
Like the weirdest guitar sound that you've ever.
We did. There's a song called "Feels Just Like It Should," which was based around the song was put together. Jay, on the first album I did, Funk Odyssey, there was delivery of this thing called a TC Helicon, which is a voice processor, and he was up late one night having a good time, and he had a microphone, and he was just doing all these weird Barry White voices and then like helium voices, but then he hit on this riff that just went. He sung it, boom, boom, bum, 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 right?
Yeah.
That sat on a DAT tape for about 3 years. We were working with the producer, Mike Spencer, who was just sitting in the studio. This was when we were doing the Dynamite album. Sitting in the studio, and he went, "Oh, I like that." So he took it, lifted it, put it in Pro Tools. The drummer and the percussionist, Derek and Scholler, came in. They built a loop around it. And that's what we had that riff. So I went in and started layering on top of that, just doubling the riff, you know, hard left and hard right, slightly gritted guitar sounds. And we got it, and like, where do we go from here? And I could see Jay pacing, and like, okay, here we go. And he was like, oh, you know, come up with something a bit more. Okay. So I had, at the time, I had a Line 6, I think it was the purple filter pedal.
Yeah, yeah.
And I detuned my guitar, so I couldn't play anything in tune. And I just started making noises and tweaking the pedal and making all these weird, scratchy, filtery things. And we did a couple of takes of that. And if you listen to that track, there's a load of stuff on there that people think is synths, and it's not. It's all guitar.
Right.
It's that kind of thing. Stuff that you can't get out of a synth. You know, you're getting a human thing. No, that sounds like
I know what you
saying
mean.
Synths aren't human, but you're getting stuff that it's
that
not
a stringed instrument can do. That maybe a keys instrument
weird
can't.
Things that the instrument does that you can build up a sound of stuff and then put some more musical stuff on top of. You know,
that's the track that's the one that has that very staccato style snare drum, you know. I mean, that's exactly what I kind of meant when you think of a Jamiroquai kind of tune. You think of these hooks, or you know, which are just as reliant on the sound that you've used to make the hook as they are the actual note selection themselves.
Yeah,
you know, it's like
there's a line in there that's sort of like a. Just a really simple thing that it's a guitar part that then is fed through something in Pro Tools and doesn't sound like a guitar, but it's just a musical idea that it just pushes the track along. You know, it's just little hooks. I love that. That's the bit I love about my job. I love coming up with little parts and hooks. And
I was literally just about to say. So you know, in that band, is it more fun being at the early stages of the creative process, or is it taking the band on the road?
It's both. Whenever you're on the road, you want to be back in the studio. Whenever you're in the studio, you want to be back on the road. It's great. All of it's great, and it's great that I get to play with a great band. Great, you know, Paul Turner on bass and Derek and Shola and Matt, and they're all great musicians, and we know each other really well. So we know, and then we're filling up. There's a lot of stuff. It's a very rhythmic band. You know, there's a lot of 16ths flying around, and but we kind of know everyone plays their part and doesn't deviate too much. No one's sort of showboating too much. So
is he a bit like James Brown in the sense of if anybody messes up, do you know it's like, oh no, I'm going to be in detention?
There's no filing system, but you definitely know,
right?
You know, and you have to watch him like a hawk, because he does cue things. He doesn't. He'll decide to come in slightly later, or he'll just come up and sing you a riff in the middle of the gig. He'll tell you he wants you to play something else.
And is the live show completely live? So nothing's done to a track.
The only thing we have, there are a few. It's all completely live. There are a few little sound effects from the last album, because it's a very very keyboard laden album. So there's a few little things, but there's no drum loops.
So he has got the freedom to literally halfway through a song just give you the nod. And
we have a guy on stage, Howard, who runs Ableton Live, so we can change the arrangements on the fly.
Wow!
But the good thing is that the band still sounds like the band. There's nothing. If you took that away, it's still going to sound like the band. And I've turned up to gig. I mean, I've had people saying at the end of shows, going, "Oh man, you've got a lot of stuff running on track." We don't have anything a lot of the time. You know, it's just the band is quite a tight sounding band.
So in terms of a gear journey then through your sort of Jamiroquai kind of life, and even before, is it sort of, are you not the typical guitar, you know, like if we came to your studio, would we sort of not necessarily see the sort of, you know, the typical, right, must have the Les Paul and the 335 and the Telly and the Strat, and I must have a twin and a, you know, I mean, is it a different?
I've got all of that stuff.
You got everything as well, right?
Yeah, I realised you know you can't get it all out of one instrument, and I've got quite a few guitars, and I will on tracks I will use a guitar for one note if that's the right thing to use. But I will, I'll plug into anything to get the sound that I'm after. Yeah. Whether it's a valve, I've got an old Marshall 70s 50 watt head that I love. I've got a Princeton reverb. I've got a Vox AC10. I've got divided by 13. Mm-hmm. I've got a Kemper. I've got an aux box. I've got anything that will do the job. I've got this great thing called it's an Altec 1567A, which is a 5-into-1 valve, 5 inputs, 1 output. Yeah. They used to use it in the Motown studios, so all the guitars used to plug into it, bass used to plug into it, used to go down to one track. Yeah. Distorts like it's great, and I use that all the time, just for a guitar part. No speaker, just straight into Pro Tools. Did you ever get into the whole guitar synth thing, or is that probably a misconception based on your sort of saying you weren't, what sounds like a synth wasn't actually a synth? I've not. I never had the big old Roland. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. That thing, or even modern, versions. I've tried a few things. I've got a guitar with a Fishman thing on it. It's great, but I've actually just got hold of the orange. Is it called a Teleport? Oh yeah, the little little pedal. That I want to try that because it would speed me up. Because I'm one of these guys in the studio. I'm one of these guys going, "What chord is that? Right? How do I play it on this?" Yeah. So it's much easier for me to work that way. But I will. I like making those sounds out of just using the guitar. Yeah. I did a session. Actually, I did a session for U2 recently where I was recreating. No, that's not a clang. U2, a great band, amazing. The Edge, fantastic, huge inspiration. But it was a track where I had to recreate a sound that they'd used, and they couldn't use the original sample. Right. And in the background of this track, so I played a little bit of guitar, played a bit of bass, but there was this swirly sound going on. And it was obviously something that, like a happy studio accident that happened in the 70s where there was reverb and a delay just swirling around. And I couldn't work out how to do it. But what I eventually did was got my guitar, going through a space echo on feedback loop, recorded it in, cut it up in Melodyne to make the melody that it was doing, then fed it back out of Pro Tools into my wah-wah, which went into my Princeton reverb with more reverb on it, and then I'm shaping the tone of the thing with my wah-wah. And you're never going to get that sound out of just a conventional thing. I like those things. I like going, that's a cool way to do it. It's not, playing, you've got to be able to play, but you can be creative as well with this stuff. I like that, and that's certainly, one of the things I've always felt the Edge was sort of, it's very easy to sort of go, but like, everything he's playing is pretty simple, and it's like, but you don't have to be Joe Bonamassa or Steve Vai or who are amazing as well. But I actually love the fact that people will go, I'm going to create this epic sound, but just might just be a relatively simple. Yeah, there's the video. I think it's the making of. Is it Joshua Tree? I can't remember what album it is. There's a video where he's in the studio going, this is my favourite. Yeah, there's my favourite guitar part. It Might Get Loud thing he did with Jack White and Jimmy Page, where he is in the studio addressing pretty much people criticising. But he was going, this is my favourite part on the album, and it was a D chord. And you're going, wow, that's incredible. And he's got he has the sort of serrated edge on his picks that give him the tone. There's so much detail going into that. Yeah. And it's on a huge song. Yeah. The guy he's got nothing to prove. No. He's just coming up with a great part for a song. Whether that's a really fiddly thing or not, they're all as valid.
No, I agree. And again, I think the older I get, the more I appreciate that the guitar player that takes the song and does something to enhance the whole song are the ones that I'm realizing sort of, you know, as I get a bit older, that they're my favorite guitar players.
Got Keith Scott, who's just incredible.
Yeah.
What he plays on those Bryan Adams tunes.
Yeah. Well, he's, again, we've given Keith probably one or two shout outs in these kind of interviews going, please come on, because like you say,
I want to see that.
He's another, like, just super inspiration, but quite happy not to have the limelight, and just everything he does is about making the song better.
And Mike, as you say, you know, Mike Landau's like that. I heard a great thing. A friend of mine, Matt, went to see the Steve Gadd band playing at Ronnie Scott's, and Mike was there, and I couldn't go, so I called him. I was like, what was it like? And he went, do you know what? He said, the first tune's playing, and Mike doesn't play a thing for ages, probably 32 bars, and then he plays 2 notes, and it's the best thing you've ever heard, because those 2 notes are just placed right, the tone's exactly what's needed.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I think every guitar player to a certain extent goes through that phase of measuring themselves against how fast can they play and how technically can they play, and then you know, and some guitar players make a whole career out of that, and that's
they're
amazing.
They're amazing.
But I do like the ones that I think come out the other side of that and sort of go, right, well, hang on, I could probably play a quarter of that stuff and make it better. He says. But so more recently then, obviously, you know, what are you mixing? You know, because the Jamiroquai thing nowadays is presumably not quite as grueling as it was.
No,
grueling is the wrong word, but you know,
we've just done 2 years of touring, and it's been great, and we've got a handful of dates this year coming up, but it's usually like a week away, come back for 2 weeks, another week away, you know.
So still plenty on then.
Yeah, bits and pieces.
But what are you doing? You know, are you now sort of, have you got the time or the need to sort of supplement that with other work?
I'm doing quite a lot, as I mentioned before, quite a couple of producers that I work with, so I do a lot of sessions at home. Probably 90% of the sessions are done at home these days, and I'll go out into studios in town to do various other things. I've got a project with a French artist coming up where I'm going to be travelling to Paris for a bit to just do some live dates towards the end of the year. I work with the band Sister Sledge when they come to the UK quite often. And yeah, just sort of doing a bit of teaching, a bit of online Skype lessons, and you know, people can visit my messy studio every now and then. But yeah, just playing lots. Not practicing lots, just playing lots. I should be practicing lots, but
on the session work where you get to a point where producers are just quite happy to send you a piece, I often see, again, Pete sort of doing stuff, and some of the stuff gets, you know, some of it appears in some pretty high profile places. And you'll be like, what was that? Oh, I just plugged into Logic, and I just used the amp simulator in Logic, and I played it, and it took me like half an hour, and you just like, is that, you know, and again, and I always sort of, you know, without getting too much into it, I always think that the money's a bit crap for that as well, given that, but maybe it's representative of the fact you didn't have to go anywhere. And
it's changed. It's just changed. It's changed. It's not what it used to be, but it is still there. There's still work that can be done.
So you're not booked for like a week anymore to go and try and just do like 3 tracks with an artist or something, you know?
Oh no, I have had that recently. It's just they're not as often. I will. I mean, I always travel with a rig, so I take a Kemper around with me and my laptop and my UAD, whatever box it is, the Twin, I think it is, and I will work with that. I was in the States recently, and I got a message from a film composer that I've done some stuff with. I did the Lego Batman thing with him.
Oh, wicked!
And I did another thing with him where it was, I thought it was for an advert, and didn't realise it ended up being the theme tune to the World Cup with Hans Zimmer. And I was like, and I did that while I was away, on tour, and you just do it in a hotel room and send the files off, and as long as it sounds good, they don't ask how you've done it.
Yeah.
As long as it sounds, the quality is good. But I'll always travel with a rig. I'll never say, no, I can't make it till next week. I'll always go, yep, I'll do it. You know, I'll make sure it gets done.
Yeah.
Even being on the road, getting hold of acoustic guitars and microphones and stuff like that, because you have to. You only really you've only got to say no once, and they won't. You're in danger of not being called back.
That's a great.
You know?
I mean, I think that's an important. It's an important piece of advice and lesson, isn't it? I was always surprised when I remember once getting to know, again, a customer of ours, an Icelandic guy that was an in-demand session guy for, this was when bands like Take That and West Side and everything were, you know, and I remember him coming in one day and I'm like, how's it going like that? Yeah, you busy? Da, da, da. He says, yeah, I'm playing the guitar on 7 of the top 10 singles at the moment in the charts. Now, it was all pop, you know, and I'm sort of sitting there going, there can't be that many guys able to make a living out of this if literally 7 of the top 10 that week or whatever is like one guy. So, so I think you're right. That kind of like, if you say no, or I can't do it, or even your personality rubs someone up the wrong way or whatever like that, you're in danger of losing.
That's probably why I'm doing quite a few sessions, because I'm doing it at home and no one has to deal with me.
Well, but everybody, you know, I don't know any. You know, everybody now, you know, you can be, there's no global barriers anymore. It's just like you're emailed the file, you load it up, you sit in front of your laptop, you play the piece over the top, you know, and you send it back and the producer goes, great, thank you very much.
Yeah. It's just how it is now. I don't think it's going to remain like this. You know, in Nashville, I know people are turning up and playing in studios together every day. So it's just how it's working at the moment, and you've got to move with it. Sure. You can do your own thing, you know. You can be in a room with guys playing, and I much prefer that. You know, that's always much more fun. But it's just you've got to work, and you've got to be creative still as well. So just get involved. That's what I'm doing.
So do you think you know, you're confident that the Jamiroquai thing will, you know, there's a few years left in that one still? Who knows?
Never take things for granted.
I hope so.
I mean, I hope so too.
I bet he still puts on a monster show.
It's a great show. It is a great show. He's great. He's a great artist, and the band is good. Great. I'm very fortunate to be involved with it. Yeah. But you never take. It could end tomorrow. You never know.
Well, you know, I hope you carry on, you know, making music and doing what you love. Yeah. We'll put some links in the description below. Rob's got his own website, and like you say, you know, teaching, or if you happen to be watching this thinking, I need a guitar player like that for a project, I'm sure you can get in touch.
Or a plasterer, or a plumber.
Is that the fallback gig?
Sexual favours, anything like that.
Oh my god! No. Super multi-talented.
No, I might know someone who can sort you out with that.
No, it's been great having you on. You know, we should probably recognise that. You know, you're playing a Silver Sky, which I've seen you playing quite a lot recently. Do you want to finish on a sort of a quick, you know, any particular gear that's your sort of bag at the moment?
Yeah, I've been using. I have a Silver Sky. I love it. It's a really, really great instrument. I've got a couple of other Stratocaster style guitars. It's not the same as those, and it's just a really well put together guitar. I also play a DGT quite a lot. I've got a DGT, a couple of DGTs which I love, and I use that mostly on the last Jamiroquai album because it's not a Strat and it's not a Telly. It has its own distinct sound, and I was looking for something that wasn't going to be something that I'd used before. But I'll use at home in the studio. I will literally pick up a guitar and go, no, that's not the one. Pick up the next one. oh, that'll do. That's the one.
That's
and
the
I don't
one.
really, I'm not paying attention to what they are. I'm not going, oh, this is a 63. Mind you, I haven't got a 63. But it's whatever fits in the track. And I will work through the track, and I might use 5 guitars on one song for just layering stuff up, and you know, having one guitar that I might play the Duesenberg on the middle 8, a little high chimey part, and then play my crappy old Japanese vintage Squier for the choruses. It's whatever works for the track.
Oh, that's cool.
Live, I pretty much just use a Strat.
Do you?
Yeah, most of the time.
Look, man, we could chat all day, but I'm conscious of the fact that we have to wrap these things up. But yes, it's been a pleasure having you on.
Lee.
Good luck with everything this year
Thank you.
and beyond.
Thank you very much.
And yes, thank you for coming in. Thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe, assuming you liked it. And we shall see you in another video very soon. Bye, everyone.